Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Good to have you back. Thank you for always supporting me and for watching all my videos. And if you're here for the first time, you are highly welcome. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Esther and I love to sew. So please do well to support me by subscribing if you like what you see, and also turn on the notification bell to get notified each time I upload a new video. Today we are making this lovely dress you're seeing on the screen, and please, if you like what you see, don't forget to give a thumbs up. Without further ado, let's get right into the making of this dress. To get started, the things you'll be needing is nets, lots of nets. I used about 10 yards of nets for this project. You need your zipper in a color that matches. Don't mind my color. You need something to accessorize, just makes the outfit to pop a bit. Then you need your main fabric and your lining, but I'm using this fabric as a lining too. Let's start with the drafting. We are marking out the zipper allowance of 1 inch on the back piece. I think it's high time I do a basic bodice or pattern for babies. What do you think? Let me know. So I am going to just tap it in place so that it doesn't move around while I am scaling or drafting. So here it's ready. I'm going to draw a guideline. The measurements I'm using is on the screen, and you will likely need the same measurements. So half of the shoulder measurement is 4 inch plus half inch seaming allowance. So the neck width I am using is 2.5 inches. The neck dip for back is 1 inch. For the front is 2 inches. I am going to square a line at this point, connecting the necks. If you like to use freehand, fine, but if you have something to aid you with the curve of the neckline, by all means use it. You can as well change the neckline to suit your taste and preference, but this is what I'm using for this tutorial. So I'll just label it the back and front so that we'll know. So coming to the shoulder here, I am marking half inch as a shoulder slope, then the 4.5 as my armhole length, then the chest measurement divided by 4 is 6 inches plus half inch seaming allowance. I'm just going to scale according to measurements at this point. Now, after scaling according to measurement, I am going to come here. Don't forget, if you're drafting directly on your fabric, don't forget to put your seaming allowance on the shoulder so that you join the shoulder. That's what I'm indicating here. So, to find your armhole, you just find the half where mark it. Our cross front is like 5 inch less of the regular armhole I used to use, so that's why I am going in by half inch. So you can decide to use this threads, but we sew not just to suit our child's personality, but to fit the child too. So at this point, I am going to take my bodice length measurement. That's 9 inches plus half inch seaming allowance, because I'll be attaching it to the skirt. Making sure that it's properly straight. So I'm going to extend the chest measurement down at 6.5 inches. Don't worry, she's not that curvy yet. Okay, scale according to measurement. To finish up with the bodice, I'm going to come to this side and go up by half an inch. Then I'll curve this out nicely. So now we are pretty much done with our bodice. So to start with, I'm cutting out the back before cutting out the front. So now that the back has been cut out, I'm going to separate it and cut out the front. Since I'm using just a plain satin fabric, I just felt it would be too plain, so I decided to add knit to the upper part of the bodice. So I'm measuring 4 inches down. I'm going to mark, so you can determine which is preferable for your child. Don't worry, you can use any type of fabric. You can use sequins, you can use whatever fabric you like. You don't need to use satin, because I know most people dread working with satin. So the down part will be fabric. So now our bodice is ready. Don't forget, you are cutting the front bodice on fold, while you're cutting the back bodice 2 times for both sides. Now to the skirt part. We would have made this an airline dress, but for reasons you get to know much later, we are dividing it into 2 parts. That's the bodice and the skirt. So here I've marked out my 1 inch as my zip allowance. I'm placing my front inch at that 1 inch mark, and I am putting a tape to make sure it doesn't move around while I'm scaling or while I'm drafting. So here is my start line. So I'm measuring the length of my skirt. That's the total length of my dress is 23 inches, the bodice is 9 inch, and now the skirt part is 14 inch, but I'm taking 15 inch, including my hemming allowance, mostly to join to the bodice. So I'm just extending this measurement across before I roll, so my line won't be crooked. So at this point, I'm just going to place my ruler and scale according to measurement. So now after scaling, I'm going to put in my waist measurement. The waist measurement I use for the bodice, the same is what I'm using here. That's 6 inches, 24 inches, and have an inch seaming allowance. That's quarter of the chest measurement is what I'm using as a skirt. So down here, I am adding 3 inches to the waist measurement. 3 inches to the waist measurement. And that leads it to 9.5 inches. I am going to take a ruler and connect the waist to the hemline measurement. So here I'm going to go up by 1 inch to curve the skirt out. You could do half an inch, but I did 1 inch. So I'm just going to label this the skirt. Does it look like a skirt? So before I cut it out, at this point, I am just going to get to the midsection. I will come down by half an inch because I just love the way it will sit, the skirt and the bodice will sit. So I'll come down by half an inch and blend that out nicely. So now I am ready to cut out my skirt piece. I am going to separate. Make sure that you cut, when cutting on your fabric, cut your skirt, your front skirt, front on fold. Cut your front skirt on fold while you cut 2 pieces for the back. So now that my pattern is ready, I'm going to use it and cut on my fabric. So here we are with my net attached to my bodice. gone ahead using my pattern. I've cut my fabric. Both the back and the front, both and the skirt, as you can see. So now that my pieces are ready, it's sewing time. To my skirts, right side facing each other, I am going to place my back and front skirts. Do same for the lining. Obviously, I'm using the same fabric for the lining, and sew by the side using my seaming allowance. After sewing by the side, here it is. Press open the side seam. You can just iron it. Now with my side seam ironed and open, I'm going to move the skirt out of the way. It's time to work on the bodice. So now my bodice right sides together, both the back and the front piece. Join them at the shoulder. So after sewing them at the shoulder, I'm going to open and place your lining and your main fabric. Right sides together. Align them properly. You can even pin in place. Make sure you mark out your zip allowance of 1 inch. Starting from that 1 inch, just sew your neckline. Then you sew your armhole. Don't forget to open your shoulder seam when you sew. So here, the neckline has been sewn and the armhole on both sides sewn. So next will be to notch. I am mostly concentrating on where I have the fabric. The net is light. You can notch the net, but I didn't bother notching the net. So I am going to turn this inside out. Sorry, I didn't show I notched the neckline, despite the fact that it was a net. I notched the neckline. So next is to turn it inside out. Just tuck the back part in, pass it through the front and turn it inside out. Voila! Our bodice is ready at this point. Now that the bodice is ready, the next step is the net. So just make sure that you have even edge to work with. Then go ahead and cut your fabric like so. So placing your tape, you could use 5 inch or 6 inch, but I decided to use 6 inches because I could decide to trim it if I don't like the outcome. But don't worry, I liked the outcome at the end of the day. So make sure you cut your net. Don't worry, we do a lot of cutting now. Cut. So here, let me show you what to do with your cut net. Make sure that you sew your net in the middle. That's give a basting stitch, or should I say a gathering stitch, the widest stitch that you can think of. Then you start to gather it. Make sure that while you're gathering it, the thread doesn't cut in the middle, because you will start all over again. Sorry if yours cut. So you just keep gathering it like so. Make sure that you have quite a tight gather at the end of the day. The net should be quite compact together if you want the volume. If you want it looking fuller, just make sure that the net is quite compact. So you're going to do that for all the fabric, or you measure the length. So here, I have done it. And I have enough. So it's time for me to sew. But before I sew it on my skirt, I'm going to mark from the waist of my skirt 2 inches downward. You could do 1.5 inches, but please just leave at least an inch before you start marking how your net will fit. So I decided to use 2 inches spacing. The reason I decided to use two inches spacing is my net is quite compact. So you can just lay it out and look at it if it's going to give you the poof. But if it doesn't, you could always go back and sew it in the middle. You are the designer, so you can tweak it up to your taste. So 2 inches worked perfectly for me because my net was quite compact. So just make sure that you mark it and take it across like so. One important thing before we proceed, mark out your zip allowance. Please don't ignore it. I'll show you what it feels like if you don't mark out the zip allowance. This is very important. Mark out your zip allowance. So now, your zip allowance properly marked out. The next step is to continue with your markings. So at the edge, you could decide to hem, but whatever you do, make sure that your first roll of net starts at your hem line. So I'm marking, mine falls at around that hem line. So by the time I hem, I'm going to start from there. So just mark it across. I know this part is boring, but hey, it's important. At the end of the day, just keep connecting all your markings like so. Now, with all the markings done and connected, it's time to move on to other business. Now, roll hem your the bottom of your skirt. Just roll hem it. So now that it's roll hem, my first step of net will start at that hem bottom, and this will be my second. The line you're seeing will be my second part. So this is how my net will look like. So in total, I'll have like 4 rows of this darker shade of purple. Then I'll have the lighter one. Is that onions? I don't know. I'm not good with colors. So you can help me with the colors, but yeah, this is what you do. Make sure you sew in the middle. Just keep sewing on the line. I just hope yours will be full enough like mine was. So here, after sewing, you can see mine is quite full. See, I left 2 inches here, and this is my seaming allowance, my zipper allowance. You can see the fullness of my net has covered that part. It's almost non-existent. So you can decide to add an extra line of net after you have attached it to your bodice. That's totally up to you, but just make sure you leave it before attaching it to your bodice. So now, to my bodice, I am going to place right sides together, main fabric to main fabric, lining to lining. Just sew it and finish. Just finish the side. It's always beautiful to finish the bodice this way, but it has its disadvantage. We'll consider that in another video, an alternative to it. So here I am going to attach the skirt, that's the main fabric to the main fabric, the lining to the lining, attach the skirt and the bodice to the bodice. Just sew the skirt to the bodice. Then you have a full dress. So that's what I'm. After that, next is to attach a zipper. I guess you know how to attach a zipper. If not, let me know in the comment section if you need help on how to attach a zipper. So I'm using an invisible zipper. So yeah, it's properly attached and I finished it quite nicely, as you've seen. So one thing is left. Even though it looks quite neat, we still have a job. Our work is not finished. If you open it up, you notice that there's space here. So if you're not accessorizing yours, just stitch that in place. But since I had in mind to do something with that space, so I'm just going to sew this at that point, and that will hold my main fabric and lining in place. Or I'm not using sewing machine. I'm going to unstitch it with my thread and needle. So just unstitch it depending on what you're using for yours to accessorize yours. Just have fun. So without boring you with the hand stitching, I am going to show you what the finished product looks like. So here we are. I'm done and stitching. So the next thing is to make sure I trim any extra hanging around. Make sure that I level it, make it look nice, evenly distributed. You know what I mean. So at this point, if you haven't subscribed, please take out the time to subscribe. Our dress is ready and I will love to get a feedback from you, how yours went. If you have any challenge, don't feel shy. Feel free to ask questions. I think I have my email. So suggestions for baby's dress to be sewn, you can send me the picture on my email, stsecrets@gmail.com. So please subscribe and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. See you in the next video.